If you think about what the IT services industry's been doing, they've been helping customers transition to cloud, transition to SaaS, configure SaaS. And that's been going on for 15 years plus. Now it's going to be about an AI transition. And just because you were part of the SaaS transition and the cloud transition doesn't guarantee you're going to be part of the AI transition.
Outcome-based pricing, right? What is the cultural or what is the biggest problem in achieving it?
I think the biggest issue is having a clear measurement of output value. How do you measure AI usage within a company? So unless it shows up in revenue growth or gross margin or EBITDA margin, then it's not significant.
Financial metrics are the only true metrics.
Consulting firms like yourselves and others play a really valuable role helping crystallize management's thinking. Very often, particularly in times like these, the future's not clear. We've poured $1 trillion into this and something's going to happen. and we're all marching into this brave new future together.
I think we have a wonderful podcast session today. I'm joined with my longtime friend and somebody who I've admired for his sheer wisdom when it comes to technology services. There are a lot of people who have spent time within this industry. Jeff is unique because he comes from almost like he says grown up in Citibank right here in New York and has spent a lot of time building tech services from scratch, taking a company which was less than $500 million, taking it to about 5.5 billion, then exiting. And then for about a decade now, Jeff has been helping multiple companies grow and scale and then help Sunstone Partners do a lot of investing and growth for their technology services companies. Thank you very much, Jeff, to join us today. I'll just start with an overall question. What made you get into this world of technology services? You're happy in your banking world in New York. Where did tech services come into your world?
It's a great question and a funny story, and thank you for having me. I was having a great time at Citibank here in New York. I loved it. It was a great institution. I loved the people I was working with. But I did notice that the customers of the bank were doing better than the bankers. And I was in my late 20s, and we got these new devices at the bank called personal computers. 1986, I think it was.
Interesting.
And we had blank spreadsheets. There were no financial models. We had to build them by ourselves. And over the course of 6 months, I said, computers sounds like a really interesting field. And a fellow investment banker of mine who was at Morgan Stanley, he left Morgan Stanley and started telling me about a company in Dallas called ACS. And he ultimately recruited me to join that company. I didn't know what I was doing. It was quite a foolish move on my part in the beginning because it was a bank data processing company. And I joined the company in July, 3 weeks after my daughter was born.
Wow.
And by September, all the bank customers were failing. It was the Southwest lending crisis in full bloom. Savings and loans were failing, banks were failing, and our customers were bailing. And it was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? We have to pivot. So that's where I learned to pivot really fast. And that's how we got into IT outsourcing, and of course, the rest is history.
Wow, amazing. So I like the word rest is history because I do want to touch upon your work at ACS. So when you joined, I think it was less than 200 million?
70 million.
70?
70.
Wow, 70 million. Classic, right? So we see so many of the sub 100 million services companies. And if I look at the data, I would say very, very few of these sub 100 million companies have gone to become $1 billion. And the last time we did that check, what we saw is less than 1 in 500 or 600 firms reach that billion number. Most of them fail at 300. Some of them get to 500, but not beyond that. So Jeff, according to you, what was the thing that allowed you to scale at that time? And if you were to try and do the same thing now, how would it be different?
You've set the table for a great question, because the simple answer is I wouldn't build the same company today, because you can't. Companies are built in a specific time, and most have a finite lifespan. We learn in business school, industries grow, they have a growth phase, a maturation phase, and then a decline, and then they settle into whatever they're going to become. I like growth phase. That's when business is fun. Maturation and decline is not very much fun. But when you look at the reason most companies don't scale up is they get sold, or they fail, But most of the good ones get acquired.
Interesting.
And that's one of the big mistakes I made at ACS, because we had ample opportunities to sell our company. We could have sold it at 200, 300, 400, 500, even $1 billion. And every time the offer was 20 to 30% more than what we were worth, we thought, we can just grow another year and we'll be there. And we did, and we kept doing that and growing. And we just would put our heads down and keep growing. And then I realized I'd made a big mistake. I grew it too big. Because when we were 4 or 5 billion, there's only 3 companies in the world that could even afford to write a $10 billion check. And that's one of the great learnings I've had that we have at Sunstone is you want to sell a company when there's lots of buyers. And in the IT services landscape, there's lots of buyers around 500 million down to 100 million. Tons of buyers, PE buyers, strategic buyers. As soon as you go to $1 billion, the landscape changes. There's not many CEOs that are willing to spend $1 billion in one shot.
Let me talk about the other firm that you've been associated with for at least about 5 to 6 years now. The company 66 Degrees. I think when you bought it about 5, 6 years back, it was Google Cloud Shop, right? And now I remember last year they won an award to become the AI partner for Google, like the best AI partner for Google kind of award. What does it take to transform a firm which was, in your own words, right, a classic cloud firm, which was something that was relevant earlier, and into something which is AI relevant right now? So your learnings on how you did it in 66, and also anybody who is watching this podcast and still wants to look at a classic platform or a cloud firm and think about how to make it AI or agentic relevant, what would be your advice?
So going from a cloud firm to an AI is complicated, but relatively easy compared to what we did with 66. Because 66 was a Google workspace shop. When you're doing a transformation of a young company like that, it starts with systems and people. A lot of people want to be in AI, but to be in it is difficult to attract the right engineering talent. And I would say at 66, we first had to change it into a cloud company. Mm-hmm. And that took us, to be honest, a good 3 years. Mm. And then it's taken another 2 years to become proficient in AI. But we first had to go from cloud. 5 years ago, we were doing a lot of cloud migrations. We're not doing any cloud migrations today. Then I had to go to data, then I had to go to AI.
Interesting. What are some of the key organizational success factors? So every leader typically comes with their own style and way of doing things. At the same time, when you are, let's say, part of a large conglomerate or part of a private equity family, if I may use that term, what are some of the boundary conditions and guidance poles or lighthouses that you create to ensure that whatever the style is, they are working in a manner or a fashion or a direction and at a pace that you really want them to?
We're very rigorous around dashboards and metrics and what we're going to measure around delivery execution, around go-to-market metrics, around marketing funnel metrics, lead generation, conversion rates, initial sales to sale number 2 to sale number 3, and trying to create lifetime customers. So we try to bring a rigorous approach to measuring things that matter and get the whole organization watching these dashboards. The interesting thing about leadership is you don't have to change everybody in a company. You just have to bring in a few people that show them how to operate. Now, what do we do as a PE firm about pace? We have regularly in-person quarterly board meetings. We have monthly updates. We have weekly calls with the CEO and their CFO, and then maybe other members of their leadership team, depending upon what the topic is. The hard playbooks are around delivery and go-to-market. And most founders, we find, that's why they're selling. They're struggling because they've grown the company as far as they can, and they're worried that they're lacking some skills to take themselves to the next level. And so they reach a point when they're in the $20 to $50 million range where they say, I need help. We try to have adult conversations with founders about what's hard, what's easy, what do you like doing, what do you not like doing, and try to dig into and get them to open up and have an alignment about the things we want to try to change together. And many times that means them stepping out of the role of CEO. Sometimes they can stay in the role of CEO. They just need to let go of their best friend who helped them start the company. I tell founders all the time, there's nothing wrong with running a business and owning it until you die or giving it to your children. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to build a high-performance company, you're going to need some capital and some help.
Right, makes sense. So I'll now come to the other interesting firm that you've been part of through your investment journey. And the reason I like it is because it seems to have gone through this whole AI and kind of self-commoditization journey. The company called Everservice, where it started off as something, then it went to virtual receptionist, virtual desk, and you've gone through different industries and try to figure out where best it is working. Do you want to talk about that journey and what it taught you about where AI is working, where it's completely disrupted, where the disruption still has enough time to make it a decent enough business opportunity to still stay within the business?
Sure. Everservice is going to be a great Harvard Business School case study someday. It started out as it was 2019. There was a rage going on in Silicon Valley to create virtual receptionist companies.
Right.
Next, it was the name of the company at the time. It was a after-hours answering service.
Interesting.
That we turned into a virtual receptionist company.
Okay.
Then that wasn't working so well. Then we turned it into an engagement company. Then we figured out that call center services, there's just not going to be much of a future in them, and we should get out of it. So we sold that as we were building up our digital marketing agencies. And digital marketing was a great business, and it may still be a great business, but it is now being challenged by AI because digital marketing used to be directing traffic to websites. And there's actual attribution, where if I ran a campaign and you answered my spam, you would go to the company's website and we would know that Sid was the guy I found for you.
Okay, interesting.
Now, Sid just uses Gemini or ChatGPT. He doesn't go to the website, he gets the answer right on his computer screen, and we never see it. So attribution is a challenge in the digital marketing space. People are still running digital campaigns because they know intuitively it works, but we don't have as much data as we used to have to prove it. So I think Everservice is going to be a story whose future is still being written. We'll see where it all ends out.
So in your mind, just one follow-up on Everservice, right? Where do you see the future of this type of service? And again, when I say future, not long-term, because they say long-term everything is dead. But let's say in 1 or 2 years time frame, which industries or which type of workflows do you think are still very relevant for an ever-service kind of model?
So fundamentally, when you zoom back on what a digital marketing agency does, is it's helping the marketing department be more effective in their lead generation programs, better high quality leads. And so that is the fundamental mission of the company. I think a company like EverService has to stay locked and focused with its customers on what is the most effective way to generate leads, and we got to go do that.
Got it.
We got to go do that. I think AI can help in that, can definitely help in automating campaigns and preparing campaigns and shrinking cycle times. But at the end of the day, EverService is a company about generating leads for its customers. It's like any consulting business. Are you selling the same consulting services you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago? No. You have to morph to what's relevant today.
Interesting. I would love to take your inputs on that. I'll just come to it too. Maybe in some time.
For right now, you should be selling AI transformation. But I don't know when you should start selling quantum computer transformation. It's a little early for that.
Right.
But
interesting.
You'll figure it out.
So one of the things that we are seeing, Jeff, is the amount of work that within the IT services world is getting done by AI, or what people like to call commoditized by AI or AI agents or LLM, is significantly increasing and moving higher and higher. So for example, we all obviously know that any kind of software development, SDLC is getting commoditized. Just yesterday, the CEO of Perplexity said that 90% of their next LLM is going to be written by their existing code. So we are moving at such a fast pace. And one of the things that our latest research shows, and it is to an extent evidenced even by how the market has received Fractal Analytics going IPO or public, is the fact that a lot of the data engineering work, which even till last year, we as consultants were very, very bullish about, because every enterprise sits on this huge amount of data, which is difficult to understand, organize, and then make sense of, or to even put some kind of AI tool on top of it. There's so much work. But if you look at some of the latest tools, a lot of this data engineering itself is going to be done by AI in not so big a future. And that brings me to a question, and one of the companies that within your portfolio that we really like is KMS. And I remember you recently did an acquisition of Adepto, which is a Polish data engineering firm. Now, if you look at KMS, you look at Adepto, and the fact that data engineering, again, is getting rapidly AIized, if I may use that term, how do you see Adepto and KMS and this whole world of data engineering move forward? Is there like a time window for data engineering firms to stay relevant, or do they need to do something very different to stay relevant? How do you see this whole thing pan out?
Great question. The truth is, I don't have a firm answer on how it's going to turn out. I do know that data quality, data ingestion, data engineering has been a complex problem since I joined the tech business. And it's going to continue to be a problem because data is in so many different places. True, even at 66, we're automating conversions from one data store to another data store. But data engineering isn't just about where it's stored or how you migrate it from one storehouse to another. It's about what data do we ingest, how do we trust it, how do we govern it, how are we going to use data in our business. And so I think there's lots of opportunity for data firms to thrive and exist. Just don't get caught in the trap of being commoditized, or don't be afraid of commoditization. I think commoditization is a beautiful thing. Anytime we can lower the price of something, people use more of it. And that's a good thing. Now, It's bad if you're selling time and materials and people don't want to buy billable hours anymore, but so what? I much prefer output-based metrics in billing.
I think you hit upon 2 or 3 very interesting points, and that builds me to a lot of the things that we are also kind of crystallizing in terms of the future of the whole technology services space. The first thing you mentioned was, is there really a problem that you're solving? And whenever you look at a problem and a solution, typically it becomes domain or vertical aligned. The second thing you mentioned is, are you able to solve the problem repeatably? Which is almost like saying, do you have a solution? Do you have kind of a product, IP? I mean, people jump to a different extreme when they say product, where you're almost selling SaaS, but something that can take an input, solve something repeatedly. That's what I call a product or a solution. So you mentioned these 2 things. And if we look at the whole crash of all these SaaS platform companies, if you look at, again, the market discounting a lot of the IT services world, both of them seem to be converging on a place where, how do I add value to the enterprise, or how do I solve certain problems for the enterprise repeatedly? Again, so it's back to the same 2 points that you mentioned. The third thing you touched upon, which adds complexity, is the pricing, this outcome-based pricing. Now, these are 3 different kind of interlinked topics, but can I just take one by one, right? The first thing that you mentioned is around being able to solve a certain problem. That would happen either as a horizontal solution, which largely is getting commoditized. But solving a problem at the vertical, how hard do you think it is for IT services companies? Do you think they really have the domain understanding and the workflow understanding to create some of these agents or platforms that can do these things repeatedly?
If you think about what the IT services industry's been doing from a big picture point of view, they've been helping customers transition to cloud, transition to SaaS, configure SaaS. And that's been going on for 15 years plus. Now it's going to be about an AI transition. And just because you were part of the SaaS transition and the cloud transition doesn't guarantee you're going to be part of the AI transition. And having the right skill sets to help companies adopt, change the way they work, to build out the agents. Now we're going to flip into the vertical domain knowledge, because you have to have vertical domain knowledge to properly transform a company and the way it operates into AI. Most companies aren't going to rip out their SAP system, their Salesforce system, their ServiceNow system. But they are going to build agents in between those that start taking action. Where we used to have humans logging into systems and doing things, we don't need to now. I would love not to have to log into my system every day. If I could just talk to the computer, that would be great. That future is coming, but it's not here yet.
Interesting.
Right?
Right. And the third point on outcome-based pricing, right? What is the cultural, or what is the biggest problem in achieving it?
I think the biggest issue is having a clear measurement of output value that this provider and the customer agree on. This is what we want to have happen, and this is the quality and the speed with which we want it to happen, and that's how I will pay you. Very easy to measure and attach a blob of overhead and have a unit price according to volumes, and then try to get that price coming down. Because we know if we can get the price going down, people will consume it more. So I think that's the challenge. Particularly customers like having their IT teams. And even though they're provided by Infosys or Cognizant, they like to have a lot of say about what those engineers are doing every day without being terribly specific at the start of the contract.
Okay.
So that's where, if we can agree on what the output is, it'll be real easy. And in the AI world, we're going to talk about harnesses, we're going to talk about tokens. What is the output that we want to produce for the customer? Is it, and in the old dev shop, lines of code, right? Well, how big's the line? And if the line's produced by AI, it doesn't cost very much anymore. And that's the beauty of this AI, of the AI shift, is the cost of prediction is getting cheaper and cheaper.
Interesting. So it brings me to you touched upon again two interesting points, right? One is there are certain measures and parameters that can be put in place to actually think about whether the company is transitioning to outcome-based or not. The second is there are certain workflows which this can be done more easier than the others. Now, Jeff, the question that I have is, in practice, are you measuring some of maybe one, two, or all of your portfolio tech services companies in terms of how much percentage of their revenue is coming from outcome, or you have kind of guidelines in terms of how much of this work should be outcome, and then kind of push, maybe push is not the right word, but kind of nudge them to that direction, give them the support that is needed to get them there, right? So in your mind, what's a good, healthy mix right now for a company, and what should be the benchmark they should get to by, say, end of 2026?
So I think it depends upon the business, as almost all the companies are, in terms of their internal AI adoption, how they use AI to drive down their internal cost. And we're struggling, honestly, with measurement. How do you measure that? How do you measure AI usage within a company? And there's everything from the number of times you open ChatGPT to the number of tokens you create. Well, what if you create tokens that are useless? How do we measure the tokens you've created? Are they any good, right? And so we're struggling with that real time. We have a great saying at Sunstone: if it's not in the numbers, it's not true. So unless it shows up in revenue growth or gross margin or EBITDA margin, then it's not significant.
Financial metrics are the only true
it's
metrics.
Not significant. At the end of the day, look, unfortunately or unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic society, and capital wants a return. It doesn't care about anything other than getting a return, and it's competitive, brutally so, and you have to be able to deliver that return in this society. And so we're always looking for ways, how do we drive down cost, improve revenue?
Right.
And if it doesn't do that, why are we doing it?
Got it. You also mentioned a point on platforms being relevant, but they'll still have agentic in the middle, and then you'll have tech services. I think the amazing example is Thirdera, which I think is, I would say, if I look at Sunstone, that's like one of your signature deals. You took about 3 firms, all different companies working on different areas on ServiceNow. And ServiceNow also is creating agents on top of it. And then there is the world that says that if that's happening, then tech services become less and less relevant. So what's your 1 or 2 quick takes on that in terms of how to still stay relevant? Or are the platform companies really kind of taking out the work that is traditionally done? What do you do to stay relevant if you're something like this Thirdera?
So we've had a lot of success building services firms within platform ecosystems. Thirdera was actually our second ServiceNow company. The first one was a great Chicago company called Sunstone Partners, and we sold that successfully to DXC, and then we waited 5 years. We decided there's a lot of small ServiceNow companies that didn't exit in the first wave of consolidation, and we decided to do another one. So I don't have any relevant ServiceNow experience, but I do in Salesforce right now, which is pushing Agentforce. And so our Salesforce company is called OSF Digital, and they're doing a lot of work with Salesforce in deploying Agentforce at clients. You can't deploy agents in your internal environment without supervision. They have to get deployed intelligently, they have to have governance, and they have to have babysitters that are paying attention to what they're doing.
Okay, interesting.
and what you want an agent to do can change over time. And it can take on more function, because part of what we're doing and helping clients do is eliminate the labor content in their business, whether it's in the sales function or the HR function or the finance function or the factory floor or in the operations team. We're helping them eliminate the labor. And so the initial agent build is just the initial agent build. There's going to be many more agents built. And we've even joked that we're going to have 2 org charts in our companies. We're going to have the carbon-based org chart and the non-carbon org chart.
The digital org chart. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'll get there very soon.
I would love to have a bot to be a CEO of our businesses. That'd be great.
They listen to everything you say?
No, just do it.
Okay, got it. Interesting. So I think if I look at Sunstone and your portfolio, you're in your third fund, right? Fund 3. And you have some very interesting firms. You have Clearwater, which is almost like you might have designed it yourself. It has healthcare and it has cybersecurity. Two of the areas that we believe are going to be AI resistant or very on the right side of AI. You have AccuHealth. You have very interesting firms that you're recently investing in. So if you were to advise any of the upcoming investors or any of the funds who don't have too much experience in the technology services space, what would be the top 2 or 3 things that you would say or tell them that would help them evaluate or look at tech services firms which will be relevant in the next 2 to 3 years?
Patience. Have patience is what I would tell any new investor in tech services. Mm-hmm. It's probably not the best time. I mean, look, fundamentally, at Sunstone, our job is to make money for our limited partners. Yeah. That's we're in the business of making money. So you can make a lot of money in tech in the emerging technologies. You can also make a lot of money in the backwater of technologies. It just depends upon your entry price. So a new investor in tech services should be pragmatic. It's very expensive to be on the bleeding edge of tech. To be really in the AI large language model game right now, oh my gosh. I would love to have a tech services firm that did nothing but that. I'm afraid we can't afford it right now. Right. So just be patient and let things bake. Hire young kids that have an aptitude for AI, have an aptitude for how to use data intelligently, and grow organically. And so we're trying to take our existing firms and grow capability more than we're looking to buy an AI services firm today. But these AI firms, they're being created. I've invested in a couple of them. But hopefully they will, 3 years down the road, be right in the sweet spot.
So I think, Jeff, you've been very patient and answered a lot of my questions. Finally, I think you touched one question, which is again very close to the kind of work we do. If you look at the work that they do for companies such as yourself in the tech services space, in the diligence space, etc., where do you see their work evolving, or what is it that you would love for them, or maybe even for us to change in the way we approach either the private equity world in tech services or tech services firms themselves?
From my perspective, consulting firms like yourselves and others play a really valuable role helping crystallize management's thinking. Very often, particularly in times like these, the future's not clear. Nobody really knows what's going to happen other than we've poured $1 trillion into this and something's going to happen. And we're all marching into this brave new future together. And it's really hard to do when management teams are not aligned on what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. I vividly, I've been through a lot of technology transitions in my career, and I've lost more money by being too early than being too late, which is interesting. Part of getting good at something is repetition and failures. Success only usually comes after a lot of failures. And like you said, ChatGPT's been around a long, long time.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like it's just recently, but it's actually been around for 10 years. And it's been working quietly behind the scenes, failing and getting better, failing and getting better. And that's, to me, the value of your industry, is helping align our management teams around what they should think about strategically, but tactically focus on right now, and what we should maybe set aside for later, put it in the parking lot.
Great. I think this is an amazing chat, Jeff. And I think we can go on, because I'm like super passionate about this space, and I see that you are almost this whole, like in, we call this whole well of wisdom within this space, and I could just go on speaking to you. Thank you so much, Jeff, and we have a wonderful event where you would be part of, and hopefully we get to discuss some of these areas more, and hopefully the different companies and CEOs that are coming in add more light to our topic as well. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm feeling great, and I'm looking forward to learning today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Zinnov Podcast. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite streaming platforms.